All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this new episode of Campfire. Today, I have the immense pleasure to welcome a fellow engineer, Seba Gnagnarella. Seba, thank you for joining us.
Ludo, how's it going? I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, awesome. So it's very special for me today because I'm going to get to geek out with you, hopefully, for an hour and also answer many of your questions here. So, before we started the show, there were already a bunch of questions on YouTube. So, don't hesitate to ask your question to Seba about engineering. If you're watching, you're probably watching either on YouTube, on Facebook, or on LinkedIn. And chances are you have a chat window over there. So, ask your question in that chat window and we'll take them in order. So, get a little bit of background. Why are we here? We are really blessed by a partnership with Google, and we've had the chance to welcome guests from Google for the past year. We talked about Google Skills Labs and how we've integrated them into our curriculum. We've talked about women in tech and with the Women Tech Maker programs. We still have scholarship funding available for anyone who wants to join. And as I said, this time we have a director of engineering, Seba. So instead of me trying to describe what you're doing, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us, what do you do at Google?
Yeah, totally. So I'll start. So I'm Seba. I'm originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I'll give you my business title. My business title is the Director of Engineering for DeveloperX app platforms. Uh, but what I do is that my team is responsible for Google Firebase. That's the main product we are responsible for. For folks that are not familiar with Firebase, Firebase is Google's app development platform that help developers build and grow their apps and games that users around the world love. Like Firebase brings basically building blocks, things such as storage, databases, authentication, compute, and tools like crash reporting, performance reporting, like app configuration. Puts that at the hands of the developers, and on what we described as the Firebase magic. It
Yeah.
allows developers to build applications really fast, backed by services that run on GCP, so it's super scalable, secure, and whatnot. And it's used by millions of developers around the world, and it's in the hands of it's mind blowing. It's in the hands of billions of end users
Yeah.
that use applications powered by Firebase.
So, and we're a big fan here at Nucamp of Firebase. I'll talk about a little bit more of that, but pretty much we've built on Firebase ever since the beginning in 2017. But can you, one thing that people may not realize is there's Google Firebase, which is super beginner friendly and super easy to get into. But what you don't realize is when you're using Firebase, you're also actually using Google Cloud underneath it, right? It's not two different separate things. It's actually integrated, but it makes it so much simpler for beginners to really get a hand of it. Can you explain how that works? Like, how do you have two products that look so different from one another and yet they're actually kind of the same, aren't they?
Yeah. That's a great question. I get that question asked quite often, even internally at Google.
Oh, yeah.
It's not surprising. So in Firebase, particularly in our build products, as I said, we have building blocks, but we also have like what we call like developer toolchain services, like tools to manage your application when it's built. But when we think about Firebase as building blocks, what we offer basically it's an opinionation, right? Like
Yeah.
Firebase provides an opinionation. We have a way of putting things together, and developers that opt to use Firebase, they pick that opinionation over the ability to probably pull every lever, turn every knob. But what they get in exchange is that
Let me show
really
you here.
fast speed to market.
That's Firebase right here, right? Oh, I didn't share it, but that's very much that's the product, right? We're seeing Nucamp here, but that's very much the product. That's a very friendly UI, and this is why we love it, and this is why I think we love it for beginners. Is you offer by default you have like five or six options, right? You don't have a library of 100 services to choose from, and you feel like you have to learn all of them. You're very much curating the experience for beginners so that it's simple. Hey, you're going to host, you're going to have a database, you're going to have authentication, And this is what your team is working on, right? Extensions.
Exactly. My team actually, so they build all Firebase.
Yeah.
And as you said, and the beauty of that is that, as you know, we are backed by GCP, so we are literally standing on the shoulders of giants. Giants being all the folks that working on the GCP side. So if you go to your GCP console, you see your functions, you see your databases, you see your storage buckets. But we made it so simple for you to use.
That's awesome. So let's say hi to the folks who joined. Jeffrey, thanks for joining. Don't hesitate to ask your question to Seba. Curtis is here as well. Aunt Lynn is here. And Aunt, you have a question here. Well, let's actually, let's pause. We have tons to discuss, but this is a big topic. Really, I mean, all the news about AI, taking away jobs for front end, all the news about the layoffs themselves. What are your thoughts on the future of being a developer or software engineer in the world of AI?
Yeah, this is something we think a lot about, right? We build tools for developers, so this is definitely top of mind, and definitely something that we at Google, and particularly my team, I'm part of Google, the developer pillar of Google. We spend a lot of time thinking about this. My personal take on this is that the role of the developer will change in the next 5 to 10 years. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are not going to need developers anymore. It's we were chatting a little bit before about this, right? Like the concept of a 1x developer becoming, with the magic of AI or with the help of AI, becoming that 10x developer, and a 10x developer becoming a 100x developer. But developers are still going to be needed. How these developers build applications might look a little bit different, right? Right now, you go to Firebase, you go to you start like an Angular application, and then you go to Firebase, you deploy it, and you connect to Firestore and start feeding data and whatnot. Yeah, maybe development in the sense of what it looks now, it's going to be different in the future. But still, all the concepts of how to build an application, how to think about solving a problem, remain really relevant. And maybe the way you feed that code or the way you write that code, it's a little bit different. But if we reverse like 20 years back, when cloud computing was really nascent, we at that point, we might have thought, well, we are not going to need like servers anymore. It's like, well, you still have servers. They're just in the cloud, right? Things evolve, but the fundamental concepts of what developers do still remain.
Yeah, that's true. And software engineering has always been about coming up with the next abstraction layer, right? Before, you assembly coding, like you had to put in the zeros and the ones, and then you had, C++, and you had to manage your memory. And it's always been about making it simpler and simpler and simpler. Maybe we should think about it this way, like AI is just providing another level of abstraction, and you're just gonna learn to speak to AI and code with AI versus AI replacing developers.
Absolutely. Like you folks have probably heard this, like the term of prompt engineering.
Yeah.
And it's prompting the new coding. And if you have the chance to use BART or any other like LLM powered chat agent, you realize that unless you really know how to ask things or really know how to input data, it's a non-deterministic model. Like results are hit or miss. Like it's sometimes you get hallucinations. Like sometimes you don't get the results you need. So you really need to know how to warm up that model, how to ask the questions to get the results you need. Same thing when you're using it to code.
Yeah, you need to be able to challenge it as well, because the first answer is not going to be exactly what you're looking for, and you need to find the things that you really that is not working to direct it. Yeah. Let's say hi to Victoria as well. Great to have you, Victoria.
Hi, Victoria.
And Anivri is here as well. Thank you. You're welcome. All right. So I don't know that many people really understand what the director of engineering at Google does. would you mind getting into, your team, like maybe even a day of your life? Like, what do you do as a director of engineering working on such a massive project that is Firebase?
Yeah, it's something. I don't know who I was speaking. Oh, I was speaking with one of my product managers this morning, and we were talking about particularly when you work in Firebase and you are the director supporting the whole Firebase engineering team. Uh, we are drowning in a sea of abundance, right? The opportunity we have in front of us is so massive, like, and the number of products and the number of things we put in front of developers and the number of diverse problems we solve, it's so massive. So basically, a day in my life is a lot of strategic thinking, like think on what's coming next. There is a lot of that. There is a lot of reading because my team members are also thinking a lot on
Yep.
what's coming next, and doing a lot of work to align with the strategy that we as leaders set for the team. So they're doing a lot of work, like putting together like either product designs or either like architectural designs. I still try to be involved with that and provide a lot of feedback. And then a lot of the time when you get to a certain point in your career, it's like my success is the success of my team. So I would say that my main goal and where I try to spend 80% of my day or 60% of my day is making sure that my teams are successful. And the way to do that is, I'm blocking them. Like, something we need to do as leaders is talk a lot about the vision. It's not just about setting the vision. It's about, repeating it over and over and over and over. There's a lot of repetition. So folks remain aligned and remain, motivated by that vision. And as a reminder of what the vision is, helping them prioritize. Like the problem of drowning in a sea of abundance is that there are so many opportunities and there are so many things that shiny things that come in front of us. Helping them prioritize, helping them make sure that we are focusing on the things that are most impactful for our developers, right? So that's basically a day in my life. Sometimes I get to code.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. But I'm not allowed by my team. I'm not allowed to deploy to production.
You never commit. You never do a commit. No?
Without several, like if the regular change to code goes through one or two peer reviewers, mine goes through like 70. Like the whole team has to look at it and then shame me about it. So. Yeah, I get to code. I usually code on side project. Something I do a lot is I use a lot of Firebase. Even on my free time, because that's the best way to empathize with our developers, right? Like using the products they use.
Totally. So what it took you many years to be where you are, right? And I love to go back also to the very first day, after maybe you graduated and your first job as a software engineer. Before I do that, I'd love to ask you to help the audience envision that career path. Like, how did you start, and what are the roles? When you think about creating a career in tech, starting as a junior developer, what skills do you want to develop, and what are the roles, the building blocks and roles to get to a position where you are now? And I should also add, in your current role, right, you're managing managers, I'm assuming. You're managing engineers that are managing software engineers, right? So multiple teams. How do you get there? How did you build your career to get there?
Yeah. Let me step back. Like since I'm a kid, I always like to solve problems, right? So and we can talk a little bit later. We can talk how I got into technology, but I early on I discovered computers and I knew I wanted to be a software developer, and something a way I look at my career when I look back, I can tell you I don't know if this is the right path. I don't think there is a right path. I
Okay.
think there are many paths. I can share my path
Mhm.
to where I am right now. One thing I did is that I remain technology agnostic.
Hmm.
What I mean with that is that I never look at technology as, I wanna be a front end expert, or like I wanna be a Java expert, or I always look at technology as a way of solving problems. And what I did through my career is that, well, now I know this technology, and I is this the right technology to solve the problem? And if not, I just go out and learn something new, like something that's probably better suited to solve that problem. Uh, and that's how I started. When I started my first job, I was coding on Visual Basic 6.
No way. Me too.
Yeah, like probably 90% of the people listening to this will not know what we are talking about. But I started coding with Visual Basic 6, and then at some point I joined a consulting agency, and I was assigned to a bank, and I started learning Oracle and mainframe. But I always stay agnostic, learning the right technology to solve the problem, and super curious.
Yeah.
Like I think that's probably the one of the most important traits if you want to be in this trait. It's stay curious,
Yeah.
always look for a better way, always look for a different way. um, and then you asked me how I got to management. I think I think it's called the Dilbert principle. Like people get promoted until they reach the point of maximum uselessness. uh, so no kidding. Something I always love coding, and technology has always been my passion. But then I realized, I'm not going to say I was a 10x developer, but I got to be a pretty good developer.
Mhm.
And then I started thinking, how can I increase my impact, right? And I knew I was not going to get better. I was not, I'm
Yeah.
not that smart. So it's like I found that the best way to increase my impact, it's by helping others,
Yeah.
right? By first mentoring based on what I've learned through my career, and then be that multiplier factor,
Mhm.
working with other folks, and that's how I got into management. The thing is that, and something that I want to share is that's not the only path. Like that, oftentimes folks think that the only way to grow in tech, or grow in scope, or grow in, like, make more money, it's just going into management, and that's not necessarily true.
Mhm.
Like I know really smart uh, um, individual contributors that have massive scope, a massive impact, and they also make really good money. So it's management, it's just one path. But I also encourage folks that maybe don't, to be a manager, you really need to like to that aspect of coaching, and helping people, and the mentoring aspect of it, and the mentoring of solving people problems, which are completely different from technology problems. But if you don't like that, you can still remain as an individual contributor and keep growing.
But I really like what you're describing here because it's also something that everyone gets to be able to do. Like I'm seeing in our community students that have just completed a 5 week course that are starting to help the others that are right behind them. And so you don't have to wait until you're super proficient or you feel like you've accomplished something significant. You can practice helping others and developing empathy and understanding very early on, and that's going to carry you to your point, either management or senior engineering. We're joking with our graduates that the best way to become a senior engineer is to start teaching others. That's pretty much when you're making it.
Yeah, totally, totally.
This is great. So let's look at some of the questions. One that is not exactly related, but I mean it takes years to grow a career. Is that question from Luis, who's 51 and is interested in becoming a software engineer? What would you say to Luis?
Yeah. So the first thing is, to me, engineering is not like being a software engineer or getting into software development. It's not a matter of age. It's a mindset, right? Like
Yeah.
if you like solving problems, if you like building Legos, uh, maybe you have a software engineer in you, and you haven't realized that, because a lot of software engineering, a lot about software engineering, it's solving problems, like finding solutions to problems, finding paths. If you like solving puzzles, if you like playing Sudoku, uh, maybe you have a software engineer in you. So if you have that attitude, like, it's not a matter of age, like learning how to code is like learning a language. It's like learning another way of solving the puzzles. Like, it's like reading the Lego instructions. So it's not a matter of age. Uh, the second part of the question is that how do employers look at older people like me? First of all, is that 51 years, man, you're not old. Let's start there. Let's start there. But that said, again, like when I'm interviewing someone, I'm not seeing age. I'm seeing attitude.
Mhm.
Is this person someone that willing to roll up their sleeves and learn? Is this person someone that comes with that problem solving mindset? Someone that technology has shown us, and more dramatically in the last 3 months, is that things evolve pretty
Yeah.
fast. And if you're not willing to roll out your sleeves and learn the next new thing, or learn and adapt, you can be the most experienced mainframe developer, but you could have 20 years
Yeah.
of development in mainframe, but hey, like maybe you cannot adapt to the next thing, JavaScript framework or whatever, and it's you won't get the job.
So something related to that and demonstrating skills. We make a big point with our aspiring developers to have them really code, if possible, every day, and do something meaningful every day, and push their code to Git and GitHub, and show the commits and show the grid dots. From your standpoint, how deep are you getting into the technical chops of someone wanting to join your team? I would say as a junior developer. I mean, I'm guessing if you're a senior, you're going to really validate a few things. But if you're an aspiring developer, what do you look for in the tech space, like in their tech capabilities, but outside of that potentially as well?
Yeah, I when you're interviewing for a company like Google, or any company, like there is a technical interview, right?
Mm.
I'm not going to hide that, like
Yeah.
and there's a coding exercise that um, the beauty of the coding exercise. I don't know if folks know about this. Like the coding exercise doesn't require knowledge on any development language.
Mhm.
Like, it's not that when someone joins you, goes to an interview, and we ask them, how would you solve. So there is a parking lot problem, and you need to figure out how many spots are open, and how you solve that. It's not that we tell you, well, you have to solve it using TypeScript. Solve it with pseudocode. I couldn't care less. Like, show me how you're thinking the problem. And the most important thing is that we don't only care about how you solve the problem. We also care a lot about what question. If you're a junior developer, mostly, what questions are you asking?
Mhm.
Like, and are you able to find your mistakes? Like, we tell you, are you taking cues? Which is
Yeah.
really important for a junior developer. If we tell you, Ludo, are you sure that you are checking the boundaries? Like, does that your solution? Does it cover all the boundaries for the problem? And if you tell me, I don't know, I think it does. It's like, seriously, like,
Yeah.
are you sure? How you take those cues. The expectation for an entry level developer, for a junior developer, is, you're gonna have questions, and that's perfectly fine. Um, yeah, those are the things we look for. And then, on the non-technical side, or non-algorithmic side, is what I said before, is that I can ask situational questions, even if it's your first job. Like, uh, have you ever encountered a problem that you didn't know the solution for?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get to the solution? And we can talk about, like, a school assignment.
Yeah.
But walk me through your thinking process,
The
because
mindset, right?
the mindset, right? So that's pretty much it. It's like, how do you think, and like how you're solving problems, how you find the solutions, how you take cues, how you take guidance, that sort of things.
Great. Hey, let's take another question from the audience. Vivian has one. And I love to use that question as well to ask you how many junior developer you have on your team and how often do you have open position, for example, to get a sense. But the question is full stack development a waste of time because you don't get paid extra for double the work? I really actually love the question. Because yeah, actually, when you think about it this way, you're front end and the back end in a way. So maybe you should be getting paid twice. How do you think in your world, how do you think about front-end developers versus back-end developers versus full-stack developers? Is one better? Is one role or position better than the others, or how do you think about that?
On my team, I answered like the generic thing and how I think about it. Like, on my team, I have full stack developers, I have front end developers, I have back end developers. I have front end developers that do really magical things with our console, and they specialize in that, and they're fantastic. I have back end engineers that they build systems that manage billions of connected devices at any given time, and then I have full stack developers that maybe they're good. You're never equally good at both. Like, either you lean to the front end or you lean to the back end. The way I look at it, I get that question asked a lot: is that should I focus on the front end? Should I focus on the back end? Should I be a full stack developer? I would say that if you're an entry level developer and you know to do both, again, always leaning towards the front end or leaning towards the back end. If you're able to do both, to be completely honest, it's easier to land a job. Mostly, companies like Google, we have more specialization.
Yeah.
But most companies is like, well, we just need engineers that can do a little bit of both, and startups more than so.
Yeah.
So if you know how to do full stack, you are more marketable in a way. But when I get questions like, should I be a front end developer? Should I be a back end developer? It's like, what do you like most? Like,
that's right.
Because I tried to be a front end developer. And I have no sense of symmetry. Like, I had no sense of what good looks like, right? And I would try to build like a web front end, and it would be awful. On the other hand, I had a lot of fun like building high scalability web services and dealing with multi-threading and dealing with moving data around, and do a lot of performance improvement and do data manipulation. I had a lot of passion and a knack for that. So if I would have pushed myself to be a front end web developer, I would have been a really bad one.
Yeah. And you would not have enjoyed it that much.
Exactly.
Yeah. I met Matteo here. Speaking about backend, last 2 weeks of the bootcamp, MongoDB and Express. That's awesome. Congrats, Matteo, making it this far. Let's see. We have. Let's take this question as well, and then we'll go back to Firebase. I'm wondering if it's easier to get in a big tech company if you have a degree, or is it just based on skills? How about the self-taught route? I mean, there's a big, I think during the pandemic, there was a lot of headlines saying, hey, every tech company now is removing the degree as a requirement, and trying to level the play field here. What's the situation now? Like, do you have to have a computer degree, a degree in computer science? Can you just show self-taught skills? How do you think about that?
I don't think you need a degree. to be honest. There are still some companies that put degrees as a requirement. Um, I think when you submit your resume, right? Like when you apply to a job, the way I think about it is that, well, you're competing with a lot of people
Yeah.
applying for that job. Um, I am firm believer on folks like not lying on their resumes, but tailoring the resume to the job they are applying to in a way that they highlight the attributes that would make them like a really good candidate for the job. And that could be, let's say that the job is asking for like I know an Angular developer, right? And you just finish a bootcamp in Angular, and you develop like a really good website, and maybe you had a couple side gigs. How you can package all of that, and let's say you don't have a degree.
Yeah.
How do you package all of that to show that you would be successful in the role you're applying to, or for the role you're applying to, right? Because at the end of the day, like when companies ask for a degree, going back to the fact that technology, by the time you finish college, like what you learn on your first year, it expired like
Yeah.
3.5 years ago. It's about like, okay, does this person know how to solve problems? Like it's going back to the mindset.
Going back to that.
Yeah,
That's right.
but if you can show that you can solve, like if you show the mindset of solving problems like that in different ways, like and again, it could be I finished a bootcamp and this is my portfolio. These are the things that I built. That's another way. That's another way to show that those traits.
This is super important because we're seeing a ton of graduates from our programs, but pretty much any computer science graduate as well is faced with the decision or the dilemma of really wanting to apply to, let's say, 300 jobs a week, right? And it's click apply, click apply, click apply, click apply. But what you're describing is really not doing that or avoiding doing that, to really go more in depth in specific positions that really could resonate with your experience, your background, and spending more time on that. And I think it's critical, especially nowadays with, there's more people looking for tech jobs. Being able to really separate yourself by being super relevant to the hiring manager is going to be more and more in person. We also tell them, if you can look in your neighborhoods or in your region locally, right? Look at the local startups, look at the brick and mortar businesses that have an IT department. Connect locally, go attend, meetup events, build a network. That could be much more productive than sending 300 applications a week on LinkedIn or Indeed or anything like that.
Absolutely, and like some time ago I heard someone saying like finding a job is a job on its own on
Yeah.
itself, and it's even harder if you're trying to switch careers because you have a full-time job that it's putting food on the table, and say, well, now I have this second job which is finding my tech job. Something I found really helpful, and I encourage folks that are getting into technology to do is go to meetups.
Yeah.
Right. Join, like, try to do like a hack night or something like that, and go to meetups and show yourself. But what you're gonna find on those meetups, you're gonna find me, right? Like you're gonna go and it's like, well, and now we build a connection, right?
Yeah.
And you start building connections with other folks that are already in the business, and maybe you have the chance to show your skills. Like maybe over the course of the bootcamp, you build like a really cool project, and now you show to that meetup, and you can share it.
Yeah.
Right? You can start dropping like you give your card with the URL to your application. It's a way to put yourself out there to build. Finding a job, it's also about building that network, and having that network helps. So that's another way of looking.
That's pretty cool. I forgot to ask you, are you in New York right now?
I'm in New York. I live in Hoboken, New Jersey, on the other side of the Hudson. But yeah, I mean, my office is in New York City.
Okay. Well, I hope. Is it getting better for the smoke and everything?
Yeah. I think the air quality alert officially ends tonight.
Oh, that's good.
It was pretty bad, and
Yeah.
you know, 2 days ago and yesterday, but today likely it's much better.
And so I'm asking you that because so are you showing up sometimes on New York or New Jersey meetups? Are you presenting over there?
Yeah. I sometimes I join the ones organized by the GDs,
Yeah,
the Google Developer Experts.
that's right.
So sometimes I'm invited. I sometimes I show up and I get to present, but oftentimes I just sit in the crowd and just network. That's
That's pretty. Yeah.
because again, it's really rewarding to get firsthand feedback on the
Hmm.
things we built. And I don't know if you know that, but now IO, it also has this IO Connect event,
Yes, I've seen that.
and we were in Miami like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
We're going to Amsterdam next week. So we are trying to take to go where developers are.
Okay, that's great. And so, do you have a success story, like someone who approached you at one of those meetups, and you stayed in touch, and you finally, I mean, that person found a job at Google? Is it like, can you share something like that, or?
No, not at Google, but I tell you a story. I was taking the subway. I moved to New York not long ago. I moved to New York like 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and probably a year ago, I took the subway, and I was at my previous company, um, and I took the subway, and I saw a gentleman um, reading a book, like a young gentleman reading a book. He was I don't remember the name exactly, but it was how to build like high scalable data applications,
Oh yeah, pretty
and
deep and technical and
pretty
specific. Yeah.
pretty deep. And you know, this gentleman might have been right out of school, right? Like
Yeah.
he looked pretty young, and I was impressed. We were in the subway, and I was the weirdo, like going to this dude and telling, "Hey, that's a really interesting book. What do you think about it?" It was a in 10-minute ride, and we geeked out like for 5 minutes, and I gave him my card. I said, "Hey, if you're ever looking for a job, just reach out," and he did. And I didn't have any openings for he
Yeah.
was in fact still in school, but wanted to get in as an intern. Uh,
Hmm.
and I didn't have any opening on my team, but I connected him to someone in the company. He ended up getting an internship, and I think he ended up joining the company.
That's cool.
But this was me more like being like a weirdo. It's like,
Yeah.
but I found
So,
I found
moral
really
of the
interesting.
story: always carry a very interesting and specific book with you, and open it as often as you can in
Yeah,
public
even if you
transportation.
have a comic book inside, like just find a really interesting
That's right.
book and open it on the subway. You never know.
All right, we're gonna take another question that's super specific, and then I want to talk about Firebase with you again. So, uh, Kyra, who's online, Kyra is online. Just finished and submitted her portfolio project for part two of backend course. So this is not our full stack. This is our Python backend SQL. We do cloud as well. And the question is she going to be more marketable with raw SQL? I'm guessing just plain SQL or an ORM. I
Yeah.
wouldn't know what to answer to that, but what's your thoughts?
Well, I have thought about it. It's like, do you know what's the what SQL is one of the most used language in the world,
That's right. Yeah.
right? I think it's up there with JavaScript.
Hmm.
So, and the truth is that when you're using an ORM, it's indirectly that ORM is generating SQL, because
Yeah.
that's how the ORM speaks to the database. Um, I'm telling you that if you know SQL, you can pick up any ORM,
Yeah. Pretty
and
much.
you're gonna know what the ORM is using, and you're gonna find really easy to say how I do like an union all or a distinct using ORM A, B, and C. And
Hmm.
you're gonna Google that, and Google or Bard that, and Bard is gonna give you the answer. Whereas if you only know like an ORM, uh, it was going to be a little bit tougher to switch, and you might not know what the ORM is doing behind. So I don't know what's more marketable. Probably an ORM is more marketable because this day and age, applications don't use raw SQL. Nobody uses raw SQL from when you're building like enterprise grade applications. But if you know raw SQL, you can easily pick up any
Yeah,
ORM.
totally. So actually, that makes me think of something because I've been looking at ORMs myself, and uh, looked at Prisma recently, and it does a bunch of stuff, and they have MongoDB on it recently. What can you share with us in terms of having any ORM support Firestore? Is that something that you guys think about? Is that coming?
Yeah,
Uh,
we're constantly thinking about how we make uh, our application better, our tools better. Something we I just talk about the trade-offs,
yeah.
right? And when you think about Firestore, for example, one trade-off you make is that you don't need to even set your schema, right? You start coding,
Hmm.
and the code start generating structure in the database in the backend. We know there is a trade-off, and the trade-off is that, well, now your application it's tightly related with the structure of your database,
Hmm.
and uh, and although it's a NoSQL database, and the methods we provide, like to do queries, for example, are pretty similar to what an ORM query engine would look like.
Yeah.
Uh, there is still this tight relation between your what I call application schema and your database schema. That's something we are thinking about. It's if anybody's using Firestore, Ludo, if you use Firestore, I love to pick your brain at some point. Is that it's not something? It does a problem worth solving, having like a mapping, having an
Yeah.
application schema and having a database schema. But it's one of the problems we usually think about. Firestore particularly is when you are coding. Besides that tiled couple, it feels pretty much like an ORM of sorts.
Yeah. No, totally. And what's so I had a magical moment with Firestore and using the native APIs with Firestore. Although I don't know if Angular Fire.
Mm-hmm.
That magical moment was very early days of us building our environment, our website. And then I have a student on the phone, and her profile on the database is missing a field, and she can't see something on the screen. And I'm in the back end, I'm in the Firestore console, and I add that field to the database, and that's changing immediately her UI on her phone. And she was like, "How did you do that?" And that the magic of the underlying RxJS observables, the subscription mechanisms, that's something that is kind of quite unique, right? I've been looking around. You can't really build that type of responsiveness and very easily without a database that really supports those mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I think from that standpoint, an ORM probably will remove that, wouldn't it?
Uh, there are ways around it.
Yeah.
You know, one way of doing it would be like you have your predefined like ORM query mapped to an observable, and it gets really complex on the
Yeah, you
server
have to
side.
build your own middleware then in a yeah.
No, well, we can still build it. It gets really complex for us to build
Yeah.
it, right?
Oh, I see.
Uh, yeah. I'm trying to answer the question without talking a lot about what's the secret sauce behind Firestore and how we get that real time response. But it gets it gets computational intense
Yeah.
when you have like pre-filtered queries, and you wanna get that real time with our ORM.
Yeah. So let's talk about Firebase. So, and I had a few. So first, I think I said that at the beginning, but I think Firebase and what we tell our students, and we teach Firebase deploy, but it's really the best way for beginners to get into not just software development, but also cloud development, right? And the way DevOps is provided to the random user of Firestore or Firebase is awesome. The fact that you can just do Firebase deploy and it pretty much does everything for you. you're hosting your functions. You don't have to worry about containers. You don't have to worry about Dockers or anything like that. That's just magical. Um, I've seen Firestore move some services over to Google Cloud Function. Like, for example, when you want to look at your logs for Cloud Functions, you're going to Google Cloud Functions now, and it's not the same. It's you're very much in the professional view now. You're not in the very simple, nice. What is there a trend to migrate or kind of evolve Firebase to maybe surface even more of Google Cloud or the native Google Cloud functionalities? How do you think about Firebase in the future from a beginner, aspiring developer type of point of view?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, I remember when you told me, okay, what's your job? It's like, well,
Yeah.
I answer that question to everyone. Like my wife asks, what you do? One of the answers I gave you is like, we spend a lot of time as leaders. We spend a lot of time prioritizing, right? And as you can imagine, when you're building a platform, everything you build has a cost. A cost in developer hours. Like you need to put a developer to build it, and then the cloud functions one that you bring up, we got like developers gave us feedback about it. It's like, why do I have to go to the Google Cloud Console now to see my logs? But in all honesty, the way we think about problems is that we have a limited number of developers, like working as any company does, and is that what is the most important thing I can solve for the developer to give them like exponential value? Is it like the fact that you can now deploy applications with server-side rendering, uh, or should I spend those resources just to give you a Firebase-looking logs console? And we have to make trade-offs. That doesn't mean that we are going to move. We are not pushing developers to the cloud console at all.
Yeah.
Logs was probably. I'm not saying we're going to fix it tomorrow, but at some point we might like look at how the Firebase developer uses those logs, and instead of just building the whole logging console, the whole cloud logging console back into Firebase, we'll just probably pick whatever is relevant for the Firebase developer, so you have it at the tip of your fingers. But yeah, we look at what is from all the things we want to do. What are the most important ones that we should focus on? There are trade-offs. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we make decisions that our developers don't like, and we love to get the feedback. But it's not our intention to pull developers to the cloud console.
Gotcha.
Something important is that we still want to give them the opportunity to go to the cloud console if they wanted to. And if going back to what we talked before, is that if you need to like micro tune that knob, it might be outside of what Firebase lets you to do, because we bring the opinionation on top. But you can go to the cloud console and still find your functions and or find your Firestore database and connect it with Vertex AI to do whatever.
Yeah. There's a question here, and it's going to be related. I want to be an app developer. Do you have app development? So I started developing on Firebase in 2017, and I really wanted to do a progressive web app at the time. And when I looked at Firebase, I was like, that's very much for app development. Like at the time, there was web there, but it felt like an afterthought and not like a second-class citizen of the whole thing. Now, when you look at it, it feels like really web is first-class citizen. But can you talk about, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but the roots really are in app development in the first place, right?
Yeah. It's I talk myself a lot about app development, because in my mind it's like, well, app development now it's web. Like you have a web app, you have a mobile app, you have a smart TV app. It doesn't matter. It's just app development. But if we are speaking specifically about mobile development, those are our roots. Like Firebase, before Firebase being part of Google, it was just a database where we specialize in and we build it for or they build it, because I was not part of the company at the time, for mobile applications. If you look at some of our tools like Crashlytics, Crashlytics is the #1 crash reporting tool, but it's for mobile apps.
That's right.
It's not for web apps. So still lots of our roots are tied to attached to mobile apps.
Yeah, you have
Uh,
app distribution,
App distribution, it's
everything
only
that's about analytics as well, where you can actually, embed that. Yeah.
analytics works with web, like Google Analytics
Yeah.
work with web, but yeah, some of our like app config products, when you can do like things like A/B testing,
Yeah.
those things are predominantly for mobile. Uh, but we also recognize that the web development is is one of the fastest growing like web applications are
Hmm.
one of the fastest growing type of applications, and we want to meet developers where they are, and we see that the developers need web tools, so we keep making our web story in a way better. It's like, because you know part of the another thing that I think makes Firebase really special is that you have your Firebase project, and from your Firebase project, you can have your web app, you can have your Android app, you can have your iOS app. You can use the same database for all of them. You don't need two databases. So SDKs work similarly. So
Yeah, that's huge.
and now you have your Flutter app too.
That's right. So, and can you talk about that? I mean, there's been recent announcements, right, around support for additional web frameworks. Lots of improvements also in the querying engine for Firestore. A lot more funky stuff that you can do with it. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think last year during FireConf, we announced you know historically we had a hosting product, and that hosting product worked really well and connected to Firebase, but it worked for static websites, or what I would call a static content, or the famous single page apps,
Yeah.
right? Where all the code is JavaScript code running in the browser. But what we've seen, it's for us that have been doing developer for a lot longer, it's uh, going back to
Yeah.
how things used to work before, which is
The
you're
PHP folks are really, very amused.
yeah, or the ASP.NET folks is like,
Yeah.
well, things now render in the server, like uh and every device now is connected, like internet is so much faster, cloud computer is so much cheaper, that instead of just you know dumping a bunch of JavaScript in a browser and having that application build itself in the browser, is like, well, you know render in the server and just send pre-render or pre-cached content back to the.
Yeah.
And Firebase didn't have a solution for that. So a year ago, I think in October last year, during our Firebase conference, we announced the support, experimental support, but for web frameworks. And we launched things like Next.js, support for Next.js, and support for Svelte at that time. And recently during I/O, we keep adding more frameworks. We add support for Django. We added support for Flutter support, and
Mhm.
we are gonna keep adding. We are gonna keep making that server start rendering story better. On the Firestore side, is that OR queries and aggregation queries.
Yeah.
We keep making that better, and the way we get there is the first thing is that Firestore, that's a good example. Firestore runs on top of GCP Firestore, so we make it feel really simple to use, but it's a highly, I would say, all the Firebase products, as they're built on top of GCP, they're built on top of enterprise grade, scalable machinery and infrastructure. And Firestore, what we saw is that, well, talking to the developers, that they're building workarounds just to do
Oh,
aggregations,
yeah.
or to do filtering and whatnot. It's like, well, let's solve for that natively. And by solving it natively, we also drop the cost.
That's
Because
right.
Instead of charging you for every document you read, when you do aggregations, it's like the cost is by 1,000 documents that you read. So all the solutions we're coming with is what you folks need. Just
Yeah.
tell us.
No, I
And
agree. You talked about cost. That's the thing that has made me so pleased is I find the overall service for the value is super inexpensive. I mean, we're running Nucamp. I won't say for how much, but as long as you control your queries, that you're not doing like millions of reads or writes that you don't need. But overall, you can really run a business uh, and at a very inexpensive cost. I think you guys have done a tremendous job here to really make sure that it stays down. Um, let's have a few additional questions here, and then I want to end on AI again. Um, well, no, let's actually let me ask you this. So, can you talk about the Firestore Firebase extension, where you pretty much automate everything that's needed to create a chatbot? Because that one is magical as well. Can you describe how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just a plug there. There is a video that we didn't record it, but there is a video that someone is building a chat app in,
Yes,
I
Jeff
think,
Delaney.
yeah, 2 minutes. It's ridiculous. Uh,
I
it's
have it. Hold on. Where? Okay. I actually prepared it because I'm a big fan of Jeff as well. He's
yeah,
he's
Jeff.
um he's a great advocate um for the work. There you go. That's the one, right?
Yeah, I encourage everybody to watch that one because you're building a chatbot in 2 minutes. I think he got it working in 30 seconds, and the other minute and a half he's just waiting for things
I'm
to run.
pasting. Yeah, it says 2 minutes, and then it's actually, I think it's a 3.23 minutes and a half, because the next 2 minute 1 minute and a half he keeps adding and adding and adding and adding, something like
Yeah,
that.
I can tell you a little bit. So for that one is you know uh, early on, like we knew that, of course, we are working with our partners at Google. Like uh, what we want as Firebase also, and as DeveloperX, which is DeveloperX is our partner company within Google, is that we want to make it really easy for developers to build applications.
Yeah.
Right. We want to make application developer accessible. Right. And something when we learn inside Google that our partners inside Google were working on Palm, which is our the API that powers that chatbot. We quickly got in touch with them, and we started working on this extension. For folks that are not familiar with what an extension is, an extension is basically a prepackaged code
Yeah.
that when you deploy it, you can pick like certain parameters, so you can customize it to your needs. But it's basically a lot of prepackaged code that solves for a particular problem. Things like, I want to keep Firestore synced with Bigtable, for example, or
Mhm.
BigQuery. We solve that. I want to reach out to payment processor. We solve that for you.
Stripe.
And
Yeah.
we
With
said,
Stripe. Yeah.
okay, Google is going to announce this. It's going to announce Palm as a beta, and it's going to start giving access to developers. What is the fastest way we can bring this to the hands of developers? And we said, let's build an extension so developers don't have to learn how to use Palm API. They don't have to learn how to talk to that how to prompt to that API. They don't need to understand the answer either. If they know how to connect their applications to Firestore, then they deploy this extension. This extension connects Firestore with the Palm API, and when you insert something in Firestore, it kicks a trigger, calls the extension, send the text to Palm. You can do some warming up and pre-prompting if you want to. Gets back with what you need.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's just write a document and you get the answer. So we have a special thing here as well, which is we ask. I mean, I didn't do it this time, but folks in the audience can join us with their video and mic on. And so we have Janice here, but it's kind of late. Janice, you're kind of picking the last 2 seconds to join us. So I don't know that I'm going to be able to have you. We're actually out of time. So Janice, next week or next time we have a campfire, and if you have a question, just ask. Send an email or ask online on our website. Seba, it was a real pleasure having you with us today, going through so many things, and providing the insights and the feedback to the audience. Is there maybe some closing thoughts that you would like to share with the audience here and the folks who attended this campfire?
Yeah, it's the first thing. I'm thrilled to be here. I had a blast. I really appreciate. I really appreciate the invite. I would say, you know, stay curious. Like that's probably the best trait for us, folks that want to be engineers, or for
Yeah.
us engineers. Stay curious. You use the if you use the Firebase extension
Yeah.
for fun, go open it. It's the code is open source.
That's right.
Go learn from it.
Yeah.
Ask questions on GitHub. Stay curious. That's the best way to learn.
That's a great advice. Things continue to evolve all the time, especially in the last 5 months. But yeah, keep on top of it. All right. So thank you so much again for being with us. I wish you a great weekend. I'm hoping all the smoke is going to disappear. I know here I am in Seattle. Usually it's us having the Canadian smokes at this time of year. So I'm not jealous of what's happening to you right now. But we'll talk soon. Everyone in New York or New Jersey, attend a meetup, and chances are you may get to meet with Seba in person.
Or
And
just
if
or just take a book on the subway,
that's
and you
right,
might run
that's right.
into me
Make
too.
sure you have your book with you and impress Seba like that. That may actually be your ticket into big tech. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Seba, please stay on the line. We're gonna while we wrap it up. Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Bye, folks.